All right, baby. It is WSME SM Enlightenment Radio. Good evening and welcome. I am the great Doc P, and it is another edition of the Sunday Night Spotlight. And tonight, all right, tonight. Actually, you're getting a 2-for-1 tonight. All right, this is a special 2-for-1 Sunday Night Spotlight. Each one of these individuals that I'm going to interview tonight deserves their own spotlight, all right, because, they're pioneers in this whole culture of hip-hop, and actually what I like to call them as agents of the culture. I got Jim Slice in the house, and also my main man, G's Records, Gary from G's Records in the house. We're going to start with Jim Slice. Yep. What's going on, G?
Yo, what up? Doc P.
For those of you out there that don't know, all right, I'm going to let you know right now, all right, you don't get more hip-hop than these brothers right here, all right? These are the living, breathing manifestations of the culture, all right, and brothers that I've always looked up to for a long time, and they do a lot of great things. So, brother, Jim Slice, man,
yes.
How you doing, brother? How you doing, man?
I'm okay. I'm hanging in there, man. I can't complain. Just take one day at a time. That's all.
Yeah, that's about all that it is that we can do, and I know you hear it over and over again, but, I'll still give you condolences on the loss of your brother, Steezo, our brother, Steezo,
Yeah.
It's just such a crazy, it's so crazy when things like this happen unexpected, and,
yeah.
and people that are so important to the culture, we sort of take them for granted, while they're here. We acknowledge their accomplishments, but we sort of take it for granted. And then when they go, then it was like, wow, what have we lost?
Right.
And it really does cut deep. But one thing that I always do whenever I have guests on the Sunday Night Spotlight, especially that are involved in the hip-hop culture, one of the first questions that I always ask is, and everybody gives me a different answer, and I love it. What was your very, very first experience of hip-hop? Like, what was it? What attribute of it? What was it that you experienced way back when that made you say, whoa, what is this?
Okay. I don't know. I guess there's two segments before me, my experience of it, and then versus me experiencing it and trying to be active in it.
Right.
But I would say my first experience growing up, I was in the back courtyard of our housing area, and a long friend, DJ SW1, right? He was walking to, I think it was called Upstairs Records over on Broadway in New Haven. So, I had to yell at my grandmother because I was young. Like, Grandma, can I go with them to the store? She was like, yeah, go ahead. Because he was a little older than me. So,
right.
So when we went there and we went upstairs, and I really wasn't going to record stores back then like that. I was still young. I wasn't looking for records. So he's going through records, and I noticed he found a record he liked, and he bought another one. And I couldn't understand, like, you only see growing up. I had the little Fisher Price record player, little briefcase thing. So you only played one record, so I didn't get why he needed two. Right. So on the way walking back, he got a few joints, and on the way walking back, I was like, yo, why do you get two of the same records, right? So he said, he tried to explain to me, but I didn't get it. So he said, you'll see when we get back home. So when we got back home to his house, he went upstairs, and on his dresser, that's when I seen the two turntables and a mixer. So that's when I was like, oh, all right, you got two turntables. So what he had purchased was Rocket in a Pocket, and he started playing
Surround.
that.
Surround. Nice.
So that's what he had purchased. And a couple of breakbeat albums, I think. I remember seeing the Octopus on it, on the label and stuff. So he started cutting up that and DJing that, and I was just sitting on the edge of his bed, and this other guy named Calvin, and Calvin was doing some rapping, like you got Clark Gable on the turntable, you got Nipsey Russell doing the hustle.
I remember that rhyme. Like that.
Okay.
That was a community rhyme.
Exactly. So, and he was doing that, and Steve Wallace, SW1, was cutting up. I don't know if he was SW1 back then. I can't remember, but that's when I first seen it in front of my face. as far as that element of hip hop. And then there's other guy named Martin where I grew up. We used to play like fast pitch tennis ball against the school. You know, you put a square up on the school.
Okay.
You
Yeah.
know, so he had the speaker that'll fit right in the window perfectly. So that's how I was hearing a lot of the earlier, you know, the tapes and stuff from out of New York back then. But I didn't really physically feel like getting and being a part of the culture until like the early 80s. Breakdancing is when I started being active. So I actually was starting to breakdance first.
Right.
And then within by like eighth grade, this kid named Derek Thorne, because there's some time between I seen SW1, then this kid named Derek Thorne had turntables too. So one day we went to his house, we played basketball, went back to his house, then we went in his room, and again, there's 2 turntables and a mixer. So that's when I started getting, you know, DJing. As the fun part, like, yeah, you rock out for 15 minutes, and you give the other person the headphones, let them go for 15 minutes, and we would just take turns, you know. So after a while, I got to the point where I couldn't be the stinkiest person in the room anymore, like, because I was still learning, you know, trying to get the hang of it all. But so running concurrently was that. I was more serious about breakdancing. So back then, that's when I really started being around Steezo through him, and that's when he was breakdancing. Him and Sean Rhythm, they had a crew called D-Force. So, but I was more active in the culture when it came to the breakdancing and in the dressing, you know, getting all the fashion, the mock necks, the British, the Clarks, the Bombers, just, you know, all of it, knickknacks, the Lee 12s. So, you know, the Adidas and the Pumas back then.
Yeah.
So that's when I saw between the breakdancing and the dressing part, the B-boy part, that's the part I was into. And then kind of running concurrently, but I wasn't that great at it, was you go to a friend's house after high school and we start having little DJ sessions. So that's why I was getting my feet wet in that. So those would be the 2 areas where I fell in love with hip hop.
Wow.
And then Fearless 4 dropped that Rockin' It joint, and that's like when I first went to Record World and bought my first record by myself without my parents. I went there, and, you know what I mean? So I got that.
So Rockin' It was that first record for you?
Yeah, I think it did something to me mentally to just change me to just be cool about it, just rock it, whatever you do.
Yeah, I mean, it was a very hey, you know, even Jay-Z sampled it later on. You know what I'm saying? So it was definitely a very impactful record. You know, and I was even having a conversation with Gary the other day, where it was saying that, you know, one big difference is that when we were experiencing hip hop, we completely engulfed ourselves into it. You know what I mean? We participated in the, you know, you either you did more than just appreciate it, you participated. You were a rapper, or you were a break dancer, or you were a graffiti writer, or you dressed it, or you did something. You was always a part of that, you know. And I mean, hey, I mean, what's one of the biggest lessons when you look at it overall? And then I want to get into some more of your history, but what's one of the biggest lessons that hip hop has taught you? If you look at it in a bigger, broad sense, like, what have you learned from it?
I'm gonna say stay humble, regardless of your accolades or the things that you were able to do.
Right.
You know, it's just like being a postman. You know what I mean? You don't come out of work going, yeah, that's right, yo, I'm here, your neighborhood postman. That's right, you got your check today because of me. That's right, I'm that dude. You know what I'm saying? You don't do that. So even when you do music, you know, like I do music or we do videos, when you do it, it's out there. It's for the people to see. Now you just like go like this. All right, what's next? We got to outdo that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And staying humble and not burning your bridges, because you never know who's going to move to what position later on. And if you try to look down on people and then they get to a position, you might need them. And you don't want to burn bridges with people thinking you all of that. You know what I mean? Because there's always going to be some, you're just going to have your turn. Everybody's going to have their turn. So I'm going to say hip hop taught me always to be humble. And because I know it was like 1995. This is when Alley Cat was hitting, and everybody was going. And maybe like 95, 96, more so 96. So Bop Your Heads was being played on BET, and people were seeing it. But me, sometimes I'll be too humble, and I don't be thinking about that. So I'm at the Alley Cat, and this guy just keeps staring at me, and I'm like, why he keeps staring at me? It almost like made me feel like I'm about to say something. To this dude, man, because he must got something to say. So I'm about to approach him because he's looking too hard. But it seemed like something just whispered in my ear, like, "Yo, Jim, chill." My conscience was like, maybe he's seen the video. And I was like, oh, you know what? I gotta get used to things like that. You know what I mean? So I would say staying humble is what it taught me as far as business wise or outside of the business of it.
One interesting thing, and the reason why I asked that question is because people try to group our culture into something that's not for everybody, or at first they tried to say that it was temporary, that it was a fad. That
it was a fad, yeah.
It wasn't.
My mother told me that.
Yeah, a lot of people said that, and the real story is that it's really the embodiment of everything musical when it comes to music, because a hip-hop record can embody like any form of music beforehand. So it is music, and the lessons that are learned from them or from the culture itself or from like being a part of it are like real life lessons that universally are strong. See, because that same lesson that you learn can be applied to any industry. You know what I'm saying? And that's the real crazy thing. So I saw a post that you put on your social media talking about and I'm a strong believer of this too, and I just want you to expand on it a little bit, that the people, the real bosses that run hip hop look absolutely nothing like the people that you hear doing it all the time. So the people that are really running the corporations and the messages that are coming out now presently, I mean, actually, you're starting to see a little bit of shift like lately with the climate of all the craziness that's going on. But, for the most part, you just have a whole lot of raps about dope and guns and craziness. And it seems as though it's a part of a bigger effort, you know what I'm saying, to dumb down the consumers of that product, to keep them at a certain place. And, I mean, you were part of this culture when it was just being done for the love, and it wasn't about, a lot of this craziness. I mean, how did you see the change, the shift from, when it was almost more of a positive thing, to it being, just an agent for industrial prison complex? You know what I'm saying?
It's sad that some people don't want to believe that the conspiracy could really be that involved.
Right.
So, that's a deep question,
Yeah, because I know. Say, for instance, you with Steezo, 88, late 80s. When you look at when we really look at the quality of the music at that time, you had so much variety. There was individuality. You know what I mean? I mean, for instance, Steezo, came out using beats and samples that was like nobody else was using. that people followed afterwards. Whereas now, when you hear the music, everybody's trying to copy or mimic the same sound.
Well, that's the part I don't get. And I don't even care how young you are. You like, yo, you old head, and I'm young, it's our turn now. But it's like, even for their own, if I wanted to be an artist in this game, I want to be different. Like I wouldn't say, okay, I want to start rapping. My name's gonna be Little Jimmy or Young Jimmy. Like it seemed like this. That's the part I don't get. Like, why don't you want to be different? Why don't we was trying to be different? Like when we was putting that Steezo album together in Studio 1212 in Queens, New York, we had bought we had one album out of all the hip hop albums hanging up or leaning against the window. and
Okay.
that was a Jungle Brothers straight out the Jungle album, their first album.
Wow.
Because
Okay.
we knew in friendly competition, we didn't care about nobody else's album. That was an album musically with the beats and the samples that we had to
Mm.
either be as good as or better than. And that's the one we compared the album to without losing the dancey part of it. Jungle
Right.
Brothers, Jungle Brothers has their market and their image. So we
Yeah,
had
that
to make
that
sure our
grit,
music was
the real
marketable and
grit.
dance. Yeah. But be kind of that grit, but dancey grit, because Steezo was a dancer that was
Yeah.
rapping. So we had to stay on our mark with it, but yet make sure we was at least compared to be equivalent to that album or better. At least that's what we was trying to do.
Yeah.
But it's just that I don't get it. I don't get it. Like I see a lot of these young kids, and they may send me some music through the internet and stuff, and it's like, well, this sounds like, it's funny you say that because somebody sent me music, and I was like, okay, I hear it sounds like everything else. So then this
Right.
other dude got at me, that's my age, talking about, yo, my son. All right, well, send me his music. So we send me his music, and it sounds like the other music this kid did, and it's like, it's like right now, because of the computers, like everybody has, the workings of what it takes to be a production. Going and buying records and vinyl and searching for stuff, that's a lot of hard work. But now
Right.
you can just get a friend to download you some drum packs and some drum sounds, some kicks and some snares. So if they're all using the same thing, right? They're all using the same things and the same kicks and the same sounds. Everything's sounding the same now.
You
No
know,
matter which producer it is, because they're all using the same tool. You know what I
it's
mean?
all yeah, it's almost like the information age has provided like the cliff notes for everyone, so they don't have to really do the work, or they don't even have to like invest their spirit and their energy into this thing. They can just look at like a cold instructional that says, this, that, and the third, and here are the things that you use to make it, and there you have it.
And
And
and I don't think they I don't know who you could blame it on, if there's anybody to blame, but I don't think the aspect of its hip hop being a culture was transferred out there.
right,
Or if it was, did they care? Because like you said, we all dabbled in a little bit of something. I tried graffiti. I wasn't good at it, but I gave it a try. Try to
yeah,
write my name on the wall, but I wasn't good at it, so I left it alone. I was,
but you
um,
tried it. You tried it,
but I
and
tried it.
and it was just out of the love.
Exactly. Because we understood it was a culture, so we understood we was about a people. Even though if I didn't know that dude over there, I didn't know Run DMC, but I knew he was about the same culture that I was into, and we
Right.
all had the same fight. They doing it from Queens, we doing it from Connecticut, but we all know we're a part of this culture where today's artists aren't part of a culture. They're just a rapper trying to make it, get a house, make help their moms out, stuff
Yeah.
like that. Like that's how they're focused. I'm an artist trying to help my moms hopefully get paid. And just if that's the type of song that they want to do, that's getting money and it's lit, and that's what I'm gonna do, and that's what everybody likes, you know. So
Yeah.
it's just I don't think that they understand that culture part where we did, because we still in those early late 80s, all through the 80s actually, and even in the early 90s, you still had Zulu Nation kind of keeping everybody grounded for the most
Right.
part. That most people were starting out of the New York area, so they were all in touch with that being grounded. So you didn't you could hear Jungle Brothers and then you could hear De La Soul, but you could still, even though they're two different groups, you could still kind of feel the same messages and in the same type of drive or
Yeah.
movement that they're trying to do. You know what I mean? Or you can hear Queen Latifah, and it's like, okay, so you understood no matter where they came from, you kind of understood the culture and where we was going as a culture and as a people.
Yeah.
Whereas again, these young dudes, they're not going nowhere as a culture, as a people. They doing it for themselves and their family, and I'm just an artist. I'm not part of a culture. I'm an artist. That's how they are. So they don't really see how they're affecting it.
Well, I think also as participating in the culture or being a part of the culture, you are also, expressing yourself as yourself. And and you could see that in the music because just like you mentioned, hey, Steezo was about dancing. So the music, a lot of the music he made was very danceable. It was for the dance. Hey, this is what I'm about,
Right.
and pulled no punches. He was honest. He was like, hey, this is who I am. And it's just like De La Soul. They told the Jungle Brothers, this is us. This is who we are, and we're expressing ourselves. But it seemed like it came to a point where maybe the entertainment aspect became so much more important that it was more important now to play a character,
Mhm.
instead of being yourself. And then when you start to play a character, so all right, so playing this character is what's in the drug dealer, the gangster, the womanizer, the this, the that, and you're no longer talking about yourself. You're more or less touching on the subject matter or saying the things. You're just rhyming about guns and shooting and killing and this and that because that's what you think is popular, but it's not necessarily who you are.
True.
So it's like, what I'm trying to put my finger on is like, where did we get lost with it? I mean, from your experiences, like, when do you think that the disconnect
Well,
actually manifested?
I want to say we were more in control in those 80s and in the early 90s only because the labels that we were dealing with were
Mm,
independent labels. We weren't getting like MCA and Atlantic and Warner Brothers. Think about it. Run DMC was on Profile. Salt and
right.
Pepper. What was that? Next Plateau.
Yep.
We was on Sleeping Bag, and then we also our outlet for the music was more college radio. So we could do what we want, and college would just play it as is. And so back then, college radio was big for people to listen to.
Yeah.
Um, so we were able to do what we want to do and get it played to distinguish us, to be different. And now you conform to all the bigger labels. Like when you a bunch of, like, if there's five major labels in the industry, right? Let's say. So you got
Mm-hmm.
to figure these five men who own these labels, they're sitting down on the table, right? And all of a sudden, a few other dudes come in. Now there's 10 dudes at this table. Like, wait a minute, how you guys sit at this table rich with us? It's like, well, I'm so and so. I own Tommy Boy, and I'm so and so. I own Next Plateau, and I own Fourth and Broadway. So it's like, oh man, and how y'all getting paid for this hip hop music? So
Right.
now they starting to see peers like, man, the room is getting filled with. It was only five of us. Now it's not as 10. Now it's 15 getting paid off this, making these records. So now what they have to do is start to go absorb, because when you start to see the power, and I think Public Enemy scared the mess out of America when they did the Fight the Power video,
That's right.
in conjunction with then the Million Man March coming a little later. So now they're seeing this music can really bring people together. We can't have them together. So we have to start finding ways to break them apart
Disconnect.
and disconnect, and then NWA kind of showed them another way to really change our thinking, because back then, if I never been to LA, now I got to see what LA looked like with the bouncing cars and the
Yeah.
different girls and just the places. So for places, if I've never been there, you get to see it. When Nelly came out, I never been to St. Louis, but I got
Right.
to see a little bit what St. Louis because it was about. So it was a way for us to communicate. If I've never been to Queensbridge, now I get to see, because of Nas and those guys get to see what these areas are about and how they're living. So we was able to communicate through our music. So they were able to take that and go, okay, well, we have our plans. We can build our jails, keep the more gun music going, and you start putting little subliminals in the industry, like about conscious
Mm.
rap. Like nobody want to hear that. Nobody wants to hear that. You know what I mean? But somebody do want to hear it. But you get these subliminals that are put out there to make people think that nobody is appreciating conscious rap or people with
Right.
some type of message to say. So when you just, it's like a tight and woven thing. It's the problem comes from so many different directions. You'll like go crazy trying to figure it all out.
Yeah.
But you got these big things going on now where it's like, let's keep them going with the gun rap and the drug dealer rap, because now these kids coming up, they're going to hear that. They're going to
Mm-hmm.
act out on that. And when they act out on that, we can pull them now into our prisons. And we keep our prisons going. We can let them out, turn them out in prison, let them out. They come out here, probably can't handle again, and find themselves right back in there. So they're going to be the ones keeping our rotation of our prisons going. Meanwhile, they're distorting us as a people living together, because everybody you go to jail for 20 years, eventually you're going to come home. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And now you gotta live amongst the people, and the people gotta live amongst you, and you could be damaged or broken and scarred in some way coming out of jail, out of a system like that. You know what happens to some people? Some kid went to jail for this. I know for a fact. Kid went to jail just for like trying to sell drugs, doing petty crime.
Yeah.
He went to jail. Next thing you
Non-violent
know,
stuff, and he come
yeah,
out a
yeah. When
monster.
he came out a monster. Next thing you know, women are getting raped.
Yeah.
Like, he wasn't doing that before he went to jail. Now women are getting raped, and now he's in jail doing a lot of time for that. So jail turned him out into something else. It happens. So, but as far as the music's going, it's hard to say where it disconnected, because I know at one point when I think it was when Biggie passed away, all of a sudden Common's song "The Light" blew up. It was like real quick. Let's get him off these guns and drugs, and I let Common be that person, right? And at the same time, it was like a negative and a positive, because at the same time it's like 98, and now here comes the more materialism, rapping about the bottles of wine and diamonds.
Right.
And at that time, it wasn't a bad thing. It was more fun to rap about that, and it wasn't bad because we had to get away from all the shooting and killing music.
Yeah.
So, but then that became inundated. Like, it's almost like, let's keep them talking about one thing and one thing only. So no matter what artist they get, they all talking about the same thing, no matter where they come from.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If it's from Atlanta, it's from Charlotte, they're all talking about the same thing.
And one thing that I noticed from my own experience just in radio was that there's also, in conjunction with all of that happening, when I moved to Connecticut in the mid '90s and became part of, WYBC, a college radio station, commercial college, but at that time, only the college stations like YBC, the University of New Haven station, you had Wesleyan. Those are the outlets for hip hop for us. The college radio stations. And it seemed as though there was a shift, whereas all of a sudden, as music director, I started to get calls from media base that was saying, hey, we're starting to track the music you're playing. What song was this and what song was that? And then it was like, okay, so media base is listening. Then the next thing, so that means that they're starting to pay attention to that hip hop that's being played. And then all of a sudden, not soon after that, then CBS throws that Hot 93.7 there. And then it's big business now.
Yeah.
It's big business now. It's like, now you have a consultant from who knows where picking the music and saying, all right, this is the music that's being and actually being programmed. So it's coming from a bigger corporation. You know what I'm saying? It's like, it's no longer the grassroots programmers that are saying, hey, this is hot to me and I'm gonna play it on this college station and just get the hip hop out there. You know what I mean? Where there's a lot of individuality. No, now you got the major corporation telling you what to listen to.
Yeah. And at one point, mixtapes were a place where we can go to hear music that was probably the B side, not the A side, the radio ready stuff. You can go to mixtapes, and then in time, by the year 2000, you go
shut down.
But mixtapes were still going down. Like the CDs were still going down. Mixed CDs about 2000, but it was like when you go get them, now they just sounding like the radio. Like, it's like, well, I just heard you saying 20 songs on the radio. I'm trying to go get something a little different. And I got the same 20 songs on this mixed CD.
Yeah.
So it was almost like even a mixtape DJs, because they're trying to get money and stuff and help labels, and labels go to them like, here, you can have this first, that they're starting to sound like the radio.
But yeah, because they're being forced to compete with the corporations, Yeah. And the corporations brainwashing people. We saw that in the clubs, where it's like, hey, if the video wasn't on BET, VH1 or whatever, it's like people would be like not jumping at it. Whereas in the beginning of the culture, we were excited to hear something that nobody else was listening to.
Right.
So,
right.
Oh man, it's just crazy. We're gonna continue discussion with Jim Slice and we got Gary in the house, and the next session is gonna be Gary from G's Records, and we're gonna get a whole nother perspective. I already see that, hey, we're gonna, this Sunday night spotlight is probably gonna like have to be like another session like a
Yeah,
part two.
yeah.
Because we
You
only
talk about this.
scratching on the surface here. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? But hey, I'm grateful to have you here with me, brother. And it's like, this show is already meaning a whole lot to me. But listen, what I want you folks to do is to stick around. We're gonna bounce to a break, pay some bills, and we're gonna come right back with Jim Slice and G's Records right here. Sunday Night Spotlight, WSME SM Enlightenment Radio, baby. WSME SM Enlightenment Radio. Ladies and gentlemen, we are back. Part 2 of the Sunday Night Spotlight. We was talking to Jim Slice, brother Jim Slice in the house. All right, part of the whole Steezo, part of a lot of great things. We only scratched on the surface. Like I said, this is like almost like an introduction. I've been actually, between me and you, I've been trying to get these brothers on this radio station here. You know what I'm saying? And we still trying. But hey, the interviews are great. I got G's Records right here, and if you don't know this brother, this is somebody. All right, as I was saying, as agents of the culture of hip hop. All right, my man here, that's G's Records. Has touched on, just like as Jim has touched on so many different aspects of the culture itself. G, has been everything from a part of the music production of like actually putting hip hop together, a music retailer, actually serving it. He's serving you the dope. You know what I'm saying? He's serving it to you. And of course, a part of that is also the promotion aspect of like all the different aspects of the culture. And what I'm really noticing you being is a lot more of an educator as well, because you're really educating us about the culture and what it's really about and what the essence is.
All right. Yes, sir. Trying to do that.
So I'm gonna start from the same starting point with Jim.
All right.
Because I always love to hear the experience. Your very first experience of hip hop.
Well, this how it went down.
Mm-hmm.
Where I grew up, there was a skating ring right around the corner.
Okay.
All right. So at age 10, 11, I was seeing Grandmaster Flash, the Crash Crew,
the
Cold Crush, because they would come to the skating ring and perform. I didn't know who they were. You know what I'm saying? I didn't know. I just wanted to go do some skating, look at some girls. You know how we do.
Oh, yeah.
I was young, like 12 years old, 11, 12 years old.
Mm-hmm.
But I also had older cousins. And my older cousins, they were buying, they were 10, 11 years older than me. So they were buying the records. And I was hearing Grandmaster Flash. I was hearing these artists, Curtis Blow.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So as a young kid, I ain't never heard nothing like that. Where I grew up, listen, we were listening to the Bee Gees. I ain't gonna lie to you. We were listening to Bee Gees on the radio. Come on, Rod Stewart. You know what I'm saying? We wasn't hearing no funk where I was at. You know what I mean? My mom, she was listening to the rock and roll stuff. You know what I mean? So when I started hearing something different, I was like, yo, like this is new to me.
Mm-hmm.
Them beats always got to me. Them beats got to me. So that's why I gravitated towards that.
Yeah.
Did I want to be a hip hop artist and all that? Nah, I wasn't at 11 to 12. Nah, I didn't want to do that. But what I wanted to do was, I wanted to meet the guys who were doing it. That was influencing me. Because I ain't gonna lie, I was a bad little kid, man. I was a bad little kid.
You was bad.
I was a bad little kid, man. I got into a lot of trouble.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So these guys were doing something that I never heard before, never seen. And my older friends and my cousins, they were into that. So hanging out with them, I started getting into it. Like, oh, this is what's up. Okay, I like this. And that was my first influence for seeing the actual artists doing this stuff. And I started going to New York at a young age. Started going to New York with my older cousins and seeing them do it live. And I never got close to the stage. I never got to talk to none of these people. And that was my motivation. I said, you know what? When I grow up, I want to meet these people.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I want to meet them.
Wow, that is amazing.
Yeah.
because now you know them all.
You know what? You know what it is? I had a wish list. My wish list was I want to meet. When I heard Planet Rock, I want to meet Africa Bambaataa and the Soul Sonic Force.
Absolutely.
When I heard Jazzy 5, I said, I want to meet Jazzy J and them guys.
Mm.
Grandmaster Flash, I want to meet him.
Yes.
I didn't have Herc on my list until a little later, but I wanted to meet him. I wanted to meet Run DMC. You know what I mean? I wanted to meet Curtis Blow. So by the grace of God, I met them all. Got to be friends with them all. You know what I mean? And and work with them, and that was a blessing. That's a blessing. So that's my thing to anybody that says, no, we can't do it. You can't do it. You don't live your dreams. You got to do something else first. No, if you live your dreams, that's what life's about. Live your dreams.
So I want to tell you my first experience of you.
Okay.
And it was I was living in Connecticut. I moved to Connecticut from Westchester, and there was an event that you threw, okay, at a club in, I think that used to be the Alley Cat or something, and it was like you came through and you guys were playing all the old school beats and everything like that, and it was like it really put me in that zone. It gave me those butterflies that I had not felt since since when I really heard my first tapes and the first beats. It's like you guys were playing that. So I want to know, what is it? How do you get from the point of just like admiring these folks to actually, knocking me upside the head when I see you, like bringing all of this funk and this hip hop, you know what I'm saying? Because, how did that transformation happen? How did that growth happen?
On my journey, what I'm saying? My journey was this, that I tried, like Jim said earlier, I tried to be a little graffiti artist. We tried everything as far as hip hop stuff.
Right.
But I love the music. You know what I'm saying? All my money didn't go into the clothes and all that. I brought a couple of Lee suits and all that, but I wasn't sheepskin and all that. I couldn't afford all that. So I was trying to buy the drum machines. I had to buy the turntables. So the whole thing is, like I said, I had older cousins. And when I went down to New York and I saw what they were doing, a lot of us in the Connecticut area, we never actually went down and saw the real culture. Connecticut got its own culture, but New York is the real culture.
Right.
I'm sorry, don't get mad at me. That's the real culture. And if you want to learn how to do something, you got to learn from the people that's creating it. And at a young age, I went down there. So I started learning about beats. Started going to a lot of record shops down in New York City. I wasn't really going to record stores in Connecticut and Rhode Island and Massachusetts till later on.
Right.
I was down in the city digging. And by chance, we just started linking up. I had a rap group. We were trying to make a demo. We also started out in Bridgeport, but the engineers and the studios wasn't giving us what we wanted. We wasn't getting that grit from them.
I noticed that.
They wanted to argue with us about the music we wanted to make. We didn't want to hear. But this is what we want to hear. You sampling, that's stealing music.
Yeah.
This is what we're doing.
They would not understand. They couldn't understand it.
They didn't understand it. We wasn't the first to do it. You know what I'm saying? My group, we came out like in '88 when we was recording. So Rakim and Big Daddy Kane and BDP, everybody was already sampling.
Yeah.
So we sat down, had a meeting, and said, you know what? We need to start going to record in New York City. And once you go down and you really get that feeling of, okay, this is what music's going to sound like. And we want our stuff to sound like Daddy Kane, BDP, and them guys. We got to go to the engineers in the studios that's doing it. And I wasn't even considering myself a producer. I was just a DJ. I started collecting records. I knew about the beats and breaks because my people before me got me onto that. At age 11, you better have the Mardi Gras. You better have Funky Drummer. You better have, group.
That's right.
Get down. You got to have these, but you got to have the foundation. So I was taught by older people. And I was at my boy's house, lived around the corner from me, practicing how to DJ. You know what I'm saying? Up to like 11 at night, 12 at night, practicing and learning the music. And his father used to come in there, hey, won't you guys cut that noise out?
Yeah.
He let us do it, but cut that noise out. And that's a funny story I'll get to later on. But the fact is, I put myself in the fire's den. When I say the fire's den, we started off at Paul C's studio, and I was telling him what I wanted done. And he didn't argue with me. He said, yo, I'm going to take it to the next level. I said, what? And I said, sample this. He sampled it, but he made it sound better than what I could imagine it to be. You know what I mean? And unfortunately, I only had about 3 sessions with him before he passed away.
Oh.
But on the other side, we linked up with Jazzy J at Jazzy J Studio. And that was the door that opened up everything. Because at Jazzy J Studio, back in '88, that was the foundation for a lot of groups.
Absolutely.
When I say a lot of groups, Masters of Ceremony.
I was going to say the whole Strong City.
Yes. Masters of Ceremony came out of there. Diamond D, Lord Finesse, Showbiz and AG.
Mm-hmm.
Tribe did a couple of joints out of there.
That's right.
You know, Jungle Brothers did a couple of joints out of there. Mm-hmm. You know, so I got introduced to the Zulu Nation by messing with Jazzy J. And it was just so happened one day, just leaving the studio, I see a big dude surrounded by a bunch of people.
Yeah.
And I'm looking. I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. Uh-oh. Let me check him off my list. This is Africa Bambaataa right here. Let me check him off my list.
That's right.
And we just gravitated, and I started getting the knowledge of the hip-hop from him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's where it came from. And I just wanted to collect beats because every time you go to Jazzy Studio, there's so many producers that were around there. You couldn't go in there with nothing that sounded kind of because they would kick you out the studio.
Wow.
Straight, you know, they would tell you, yeah, your session's over, man. This ain't hot. This ain't hot. So we was in there competing, like Jim had said earlier. You know, he had the picture of the Jungle Brothers, the album cover.
Yeah.
Nah, we had Diamond D waiting to get into for his session. We had Lord Finesse waiting. And if they didn't hear that banging, you get that, hey man, get them guys out of here. Because we was coming from Connecticut too. A lot of people didn't even know that. Our music was so hot. Our music was on point. I ain't bragging. Our music was on point that they didn't know. They just was like, who are these guys? Where they coming from? And I had to step my game up. I always had to make sure I knew the beats. I was always out there digging. We consider now called digging in the crates. That term and phrase was deemed in Jazzy J Studio. Digging in the crates was that group.
And that's literally what it was that was going on.
Mm-hmm.
Just absolutely digging in there. So when we get to Legends, Beats, and Grooves, something that I've participated in, and I want to thank you so much for having me as a part of that. It's always an honor, and and I always try to represent it. I want to represent it more. Now that I'm living in other places, but that is such a great educational tool in so many ways, because when you're bringing the culture and you have panelists that are speaking their experiences, like, how did you start getting into that?
Well, once again, me and Jim Slice, we were down in New York, and we were going down to New York for the annual Katona Jam and the Digging in the Crates Jam, and all these different events they were having. And we said, you know what? We need to bring this to Connecticut. Why don't Connecticut really have this? Right. Because we would call people up like, y'all want to roll with us? Nah, we too busy. We got this doing, or my dog's sick. Something would happen.
Right.
But then they wanted to hear the stories that we were telling them once we got back. And we said, you know what? Nah, we tired of telling them stories. Let's bring it to them. And that goes back to what you guys were talking about. We have to continue our culture. Yeah. The disconnect is because a lot of us don't give back our knowledge. We got to give back our knowledge. You know what I mean? Yeah. And the next generation ain't going to know what we've been through. We ain't telling them what we've been through. You hear what I mean? They can't just say, oh, man, they can't feel what happened in 1980 when they were born in 2000. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So we have to give it back. And another thing about Legend Beats Groove, we started this because I got tired of the Serato DJs thinking they were the best DJs around. When you pushing buttons. I'm sorry. Pushing buttons. Don't.
Don't start no stuff now, G.
I already started, bro. I already started. It's the
Oh
truth.
man,
You ain't in the level. You're not in the level with the DJ Cash Money and the Kid Capri's and all them. Just because you can emulate something they do with the new technology. Nah,
right.
because they put their blood, sweat, and tears into doing this. You know what I mean? So we started Legend Pizza Groups, and we said, let's bring up these DJs that we admire that are legends in the game. Not legends because they was doing it in their backyard.
Right.
Or at a block party. These brothers went around the world. They got the name and fame from going around the world. And then as we did it, we grew. We went to other cities. We went to other states. And then we started adding on the panel discussion because people were enjoying the music, but we wanted to get a message to them about this music. And we wanted to get a message about DJing. You know what I mean? So, and that's just the people that I've been around. I was always taught to get back to this culture. Not just take from the culture, give back. And once we stop giving back to the culture, we can't complain about which way it's going. If you're not giving back to it, you can't complain which way they're going, which direction it's going.
Yeah. And as a DJ, because you touched on the whole technology thing, because I was saying, don't start no stuff.
No, I'm gonna touch on it. You can do it. You go ahead, do what you gotta do.
So when you look at the technology, because we look at the history of the technology, the way that it is developed, because it's just like when you were saying when you go into the studios that didn't know what hip hop production was all about. They were looking at sampling as face value, and they're like, "Oh, that's not music. You're stealing from someone." But what's not being understood is that there's actually an art form in utilizing that technology, and which is an art form within itself. So when you get even more digitized, and when DJing gets so digitized, whereas you have, and like we was talking about, like I was talking about with Jim, like where you actually have it laid out for hip hop or music, everything's laid out for you. You don't have to learn, you don't have to do any of the work. You just it's set up there. You can just push some buttons. So tell me something. Is there a level of artistry or skill that is comparable? You know what I'm saying? When you're pushing the buttons, is that a level of skill that's comparable to actually digging in the crates and finding beats? Because you got to learn how to utilize them buttons now.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It is. I mean, technology is always good. It's always good if you don't cheat it. Like Jim put me onto DJ Ragosa.
Okay.
And DJ Ragosa, when I first seen him do what he does, he blends the old school, but he uses it with some new technology. He's nasty with it. But if you just going around trying to emulate what somebody's doing and you pushing the button to emulate that, that's not no. Because
you can push a button and make that scratching sound instead of scratching.
Or if you don't know how to scratch, if you don't know how to stay on time, stop DJing for one thing. Don't hit that cue button so you can know where your cue points are. Come on, man. Let's stop that. Because there's too many DJs out there doing it. Stop it. You're not a DJ. You're a jukebox. Stop it. Stop it.
It's just like the real singers getting mad at people that auto-tune and all of that. You know what I'm saying? It's like they ain't really singing.
No doubt. And too many people want to incorporate themselves into the culture and say, oh, I'm this, I'm that. And then think you're in the category. You're not in the category of the people that put that work in. You're not in that category. You only been doing it for 6 months. No, you got to stop it. And that's what I was getting tired of. Right. And a lot of DJs got mad at me too, man. They got mad at me. They were like, well, how come I can't be a part of your event? The title says it all.
Right.
Legends. If you're not that, and you ain't got no beats and no grooves, you know what I mean? When I talk about when I go deep, like you said, you came to my event, and that must have been what, 98 or something like that?
Yeah. Is it like in late 90s?
We weren't playing the same break beats that you heard. Our crates was a little different. Yeah. And there was a style of different DJs that was up there. You know what I'm saying? And we learned the craft.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? We learned the craft of it all. And I'm not saying with technology comes, everybody's going to have their new thing on it. And I'm not mad at that. But don't be saying, yo, I could take this person out, or I could take this person. No, you can't. No, you can't, man. Get back to them turntables like it's supposed to be. You know, I'm
My
sorry, I
ex-
was getting upset. I'm sorry.
yeah, but I was just saying, just going back to that night when I first saw you guys. I mean, that my experience of that night, I can remember that. I was just bugging out. I was out on the floor and just thoroughly enjoying the moment. And just as whatever beats it was that was happening, I was just like, wow. It's just so refreshing, and it is always refreshing when you have those, legends, beats, and grooves. And I know with the COVID and everything else that's going on, we don't even know if we'll ever, how long it'll be before we can get to a place where we can have a gathering like that. But it's most definitely needed. So
Yeah.
I want to touch briefly on the whole music retailing aspect of what it is that you have a lot of experience in it, and some of the changes that you've experienced with that, because
Okay.
because it seemed as though records was the foundation of everything, and then we the same time when hip hop was disconnecting from itself, we disconnected from the analog and the the vinyl and everything else.
Well, I think I'm gonna stop you on that.
Okay.
I think certain regions did,
All right.
other regions didn't,
Okay.
other areas didn't. Where we stopped in the Northeast or somewhat,
Okay.
Japan never did. That's why their DJs are so nasty right now.
Ooh.
London, England, and all them, they still always collected the records. That's why
Right.
they started bringing, honestly, in like '93, they started bringing a lot of their European breaks over, and we started opening up a new thing. Where I remember showing Bam records, like, yo, Bam, this is
Right.
that. Where you get that from? Because I used to have my boys from England come over, and they would bring, every time they came over, bring about 4 or 5 suitcases of records, and I would trade them records and build my catalog up that way.
Yeah.
And at that same time, I was getting too many records, and that's where my retailing happened, because I was at mom's house, and mom said, "Hey, you're gonna have to do something with this. I can't move around.
Yeah.
Your basement's full of records."
Your record hoarder.
Yeah, she said, you better get rid of them before I do. And luckily, through, like I said, with connections, God blessings, I met a Japanese guy who came over one day, and I said, I put an ad out there. I'm selling some records, stuff that I wasn't using because I was sampling. I was buying thousands of records for sampling, and some stuff didn't have no sample on it. You never knew what it was. We didn't have the Shazam and look up records, so we had to go with visual. So I was buying thousands and thousands. At one time in my house alone, I had about 40,000 records, and that was cool if you had a store, but it wasn't cool if you was, So I had to sell. I had to sell records because I know they're going to get thrown away.
So wow. So you became a retailer out of necessity, basically.
Out of accident necessity, right? There you go. Out of accidental necessity, And I understood at that point where everything in life, you listen, like Jim Slice said earlier, you stay humble, you'll learn more.
Right.
This guy came to my house, and this happened a long time ago. So IRS don't come after me now. This happened a long time ago.
Okay.
I'm selling him records, and he's asking me how much you want for them. I'm like, well, take all that for $500. I'm thinking I'm a big man. Take all that for $500, and I'm young. I'm like 19 years old.
Yeah.
He stopped me. He said, "No, I'm going to give you $3,000." I said, "Wait a minute, what? What?" "Yeah, I'm going to give you $3,000. I'm also going to teach you, because he saw that I had so many. I'm going to teach you what I'm looking for. So every time I come over from Japan, this is what I want you to set me up with this."
Right.
And I said, "Well, I can make that off you." "Yeah." I said, "Okay." The next day I called my job and said, "Yeah, I don't think I'm coming in this week or the next week. I got a new career." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And this has been taking me. That was back in '91. You know what I mean?
Right.
And on and off, I've been doing that on and off. I had 3 record stores, 1 in New York, 2 in Connecticut, and setting up at conventions where it was hot. And that's how I got to meet a lot of different producers that I didn't know. I was selling records to Pete Rock and Kid Capri, Q-Tip, and these guys. You know what I mean? And Large Professor, yeah, and the Beat Nuts before they was even out. You know what I'm saying? And I also did production with them. You know what I mean? And I was always staying behind the scenes. There's records that you don't know I'm on that I'm on.
Yeah,
you know
and,
what I mean?
and that's what I'm saying. Like I was saying, folks, at the top of this whole thing, you know, agents of the culture, you know, and you know, we're gonna have to do a part 2. We're gonna continue our discussion on another day. Most definitely, absolutely. G's Records, Jim Slice.
Thank you, brother. Thank you.
I want to thank you. And you put the camera on Jim for a second so we can get a peace sign from him as well.
Yes, sir.
Oh, man. Listen, you know, and I know I put you guys through a couple of changes today to be able to do this interview with me.
We having fun.
You know, but hey, man, thank you so much. All right, and hey, you know, another Sunday night special, Sunday night spotlight has gone down right here. Jim Slice and G's Records. Fellas, real quickly before we bounce out, I want you to let people know where it is that they can find you. We start with Jim. You know, you have any social media, anything, website, anything like that you want to let people know how they can get in touch with you if they just want to build with you?
I'm pretty basic out there. I don't do it all. I don't have time to try to maintain different social networks, but you find me on Facebook, Jim Slice, and you can find me at Instagram, Jim Slice, Jim Slizzerman, and that's about it right now. And I know you're gonna say we're gonna come back a second time, but I just want everybody to know right now there's a hot joint coming out for our Diesel Memorial album.
Oh, yeah.
Can't touch on that, but next time around.
I had that written here to ask you, and I'm sorry. I had it written here. I got it right here. Like, look, you can see. Will there be the follow-up album there? The follow-up, the Steezo tribute album. How, is that still happening? Because I heard you mention it. And what's the deal with that? That's happening?
Yeah, you know, I wish it was happening a little faster than it is. You know, but it is what it is. Good things are coming up out of it, and some people are stepping up and giving us. You know, if they don't do a verse for us, then they'll send drop. You know,
Right.
LQJ's done a drop.
Nice.
Big Daddy Kane's done a drop. Kango Kid from UTFO has done a drop. I called Just Blaze, got Just Blaze to send a drop. You know, and there's some other people who gave some verses. I don't want to talk about the verses because that's going to be a surprise. But we got some stuff that's going to make people proud and make them like this second album, man. Give my man his last hurrah.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm looking forward to that. And Brother G's
Yes,
Records in the house.
Yes, you know, it's simple.
Yeah.
Oh, here we go. I'm sorry.
No.
Yeah. I'm sorry. We're getting the camera right. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Simple. G's Records. That's GEES Records. One word. Or you can go on Facebook. Gary Thomas. My government. You know what I mean?
Nice.
And I'm doing something September 27th at 40 Logan. You get more information. We're doing a record show, social distance record show. You want to come out with those beats and those grooves, those spread it out to Rhode Island and Massachusetts. Come on down and get that stuff. They know my name.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And you know what? When you're having those events, we're going to make sure that people hear about it right here on SM Enlightenment Radio. So Jim Slice and G's Records, thank you so much once again. Peace and blessings. Have a great night. And God bless you, man. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you for all that you do for the culture. Peace and blessings, y'all.
Thanks.
All right, brothers. Thank